for anyone living under a rock, Avengers Endgame drops and kind of changed the world with it. The movie, by the time of this recording, is doing insane numbers. It's breaking all the records, and it's making fans wonder how they can recover after this big event. And it's left a posing question in my, and I'm sure many of your minds as well, as where do we go from here? And to do this, I've had to assemble a motley crew, a dynamic duo more so than a team, but one that will try and give our thoughts of where we'd like to see things go and maybe what we'd do ourselves. Once again, I've brought the mighty, the incredible, the amazing Joel.
Joel Smash. All right. I don't want to do that. I got my computer here. Alrighty, yeah. MCU. Oh man, we end of an era, man. Just end of an era,
Precisely.
and the
It's
start of something new.
definitely we've gone so far from I Am Iron Man all the way to where we are now is
To I am Iron Man. Full circle.
there's been such a development, there's such a large cast of characters, and with the Disney Fox deal, there's even a larger cast of characters just coming up in the horizon. And I guess getting right into this, sticking with the immediate future of what's been announced in Phase 4, like your Black Widows, your Eternals, Doctor Strange 2, Black Panther 2, and hell, even the earliest at the end of Phase 3 with Far From Home. How do you feel about the MCU's future immediately, before we go into far future?
Immediately, I still think it'll be pretty strong. It's Kevin Feige's kind of the thing keeping this all together. I definitely think it's not going to be the same because you're because of stuff that happened in Endgame. I'm going to try and keep it spoiler free until we get into deeper into it. Then I'll start saying things
Mm-hmm.
for the benefit of your audience. But I think it's going to be strong. I'm waiting to see what the full Phase 4 lineup looks like, though. That to me is what's going to be really interesting.
Right.
Because right now it's kind of like things you kind of already knew you're gonna get. Like, not really predict. That's kind of predictable, easy to figure out. It's when the full Phase 4 comes out that's like, oh, okay, that's kind of like the direction we're going now. All right, okay.
Now I'm part of the same, and something that's very interesting to me is how much Disney Plus seems to be part of that future. We're getting a lot of MCU things on Disney Plus that, given what happens in Endgame, no longer seem like, oh, these will be side stories. They seem like they're going to be very integral to the plot. Like, that Falcon Winter Soldier series, completely going to be integral, I feel like.
Oh, definitely. Like, I thought it was gonna be before Endgame, and like, oh, I guess not. Because of what happened. Um, so it's like, oh, okay, battle for the shield. No, it doesn't seem like that. But like, because of how Bucky reacted. But like, ooh, okay, I'm looking forward to it. I feel like I'm very excited to see how Disney Plus adds to the calculation of the MCU moving forward. Because the one thing about the MCU that's always been sort of lied to us as fans is like it's all connected, but it's not. Um, the TV division and the movie division have always sort of been at odds with one another for personal reasons because Feige doesn't like Perlmutter, understandably. Um, but it's sort of like you watch Agents of Shield and it's like, is this really connected to the MCU? I mean, it says it is, but I don't need to know it. I know there's fans of Agents of Shield. I actually do know some folks who like Agents of Shield. And you got like things like Cloak and Dagger, which is part of the MCU as well, but doesn't feel like it as well because it's so disconnected. So I'm sure it's a fine show. I haven't seen it. And then you got the Daredevil stuff, which the Defender stuff, which I love the first season of Daredevil and Jessica Jones, and I liked Luke Cage and all that stuff. But like, they don't really feel like it's part of the grand universe of things.
Yeah,
Um,
everything feels like separate parts. Whereas now, and like, the movies are the only thing you need to notice. Whereas now, moving to how big of a push Disney is doing to their streaming service and like the future of how entertainment industry is going to go, it very much does feel like the AMCU is going to branch out into TV series, movies, maybe even animated things with the What If series, and just there's going to be a lot more avenues for MCU content that makes it. I don't know what the word is for it, but I think it's making it a lot more expansive than it was before. Whereas it was just a movie series, now it feels like this is becoming the main Marvel universe, and it's going to be replacing the comics.
Which is sad. I'm just gonna say right now, I'm not a comics person. At least, in the sort of I read weekly comics. I have a few comics here and there. I know a lot of Batman. I don't know a lot of Marvel outside of really just the movies. And I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people who are MCU fans. But it's kind of sad. Sort of like, comics should be the comics first. The MCU should be its own thing. Keep them separate, folks. That's why they enjoy them. I don't need the comic Guardians to be like the movie Guardians. I can have one, you can have the other. But yeah, I also think it's making it a bit more diverse in terms of avenues. Because I know, like, have you ever seen Patrick Williams' video of, like, limits of the MCU kind of a video?
Yeah.
So I kind of agree with him that, the movies, while they try, and they've done a really good job, more or less, but they haven't really nailed that sort of comic serialized storytelling in a way where you can kind of get like the smaller moments because it's always such big bombastic action. And I mean, Endgame had some really good character small moments too. Don't get me wrong, it really did. But it's still, like, what was Hawkeye doing during the 5 years, of after the snap? Like, what are those little moments going on? I feel like the TV Disney Plus thing is going to finally start giving us those moments of like, oh, the villain is not Thanos trying to destroy the universe. It's random bank robber dude.
It's the Shocker.
Yeah, it's the Shocker. Which is why I would love Disney Plus to have a Spider-Man series. I feel like, Spider-Man would do so well there.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think it's going to happen, sadly, because of the whole Sony thing, but, man can dream.
Exactly. And I think that's a good place to go with things is Kevin Feige's said that Spider-Man Far From Home isn't the beginning of the next phase, it's the epilogue to this phase. But that's the film that's immediately on the horizon. And I guess if you say, where do you feel like Spider-Man's future in the MCU lies, given how shaky Sony seems to be with, will he could end up staying or are they going to snatch him away?
Ooh, I don't know when it comes to Sony. I've given up predicting with Sony. They do these weird things and then they make Spider-Verse and then they give Lord and Miller a bunch of power. So it's like, I don't know what you're thinking, Sony. I mean, if Lord and Miller are doing something, then great. Keep doing that. But then you got Venom, which made $1 bajillion. But they kind of wanted to distance that from the MCU. But then it made $1 bajillion, and maybe now they want to keep it in, make it more part of the MCU. I think right now it's kind of hard to predict. I hope he stays with Marvel because I like the idea of Spider-Man just in the MCU in general. But I do think right now the power is more with Marvel than it is with Sony because. Oh, I remember somebody saying, I don't remember who said this a long time ago, a long video ago. Somebody said along the lines of, Marvel doesn't need Spider-Man anymore. At least the Marvel Universe doesn't. Although that calculation might be different because of how Endgame wound up, but they still got Black Panther. Captain Marvel made $1 billion, so clearly she's popular. People love the Guardians. It's like Spider-Man in terms of the MCU isn't top dog. And quite frankly, he hasn't been since the start of this. It's been Iron Man. He's been top dog. Maybe Captain America and Iron Man are kind of the top dogs. And I guess Thor kind of in that weird B ground. But I think Marvel at least can reconcile a world without Spider-Man in their MCU. I don't want it. I think right now maybe Sony. I think Sony might just be all bark but no bite, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's you can predict only so much with Sony's wacky business practices. Something maybe a bit more predictable, I guess. and maybe tying into where we'll see things in the future is with the acquisition of Fox characters, which includes the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. Where do you see them playing a factor into the future of the MCU? Are they going to be the next big thing?
Well, funny enough, I was watching your video of Thanos just today, this morning, before we started recording, and you brought up the point of Doctor Doom was always kind of the main baddie of the Marvel universe before
Yes.
Thanos. I think it'd be interesting if Marvel, in a way, reverts back to pre-MCU comic book status. Because, okay, I'm going to now spoil Endgame, folks. Spoilers for Endgame, so jump now, people.
You've had 10 minutes of non-spoilers, so there you go.
I've done my best, but now I have. Thanos is gone. He got snapped, and the stones are gone, so they can't snap him back. Unless they do more weird time travel.
And then present Thanos got his head cut off as well. So Thanos got killed twice.
Yeah. So Thanos is no longer the main baddie of the MCU anymore. So they could be maybe the next big overarching bad that they can at least maybe work into if they want to go in that direction is Doctor Doom and maybe Galactus, as if you want another big cosmic threat.
See, my thing with Galactus is I feel Galactus works really, really well for one film.
That's true.
He's not an arc villain. He's a guy who shows up in a big climactic film of a phase maybe, and then that's it. And then maybe he has cameos now and again. Doctor Doom is precisely why he became so big in Marvel in the first place as a villain, is you can do any kind of story with him. You can have him fight Daredevil or Spider-Man, but then you can also have him fight Thor. It's like he fits against everyone.
So that's why I think, with now the Fox acquisition, I think they got their Doctor Doom, and they're going to want to use Doctor Doom because everyone's been shouting for Doctor Doom, and the MCU feels weird without Doctor Doom. So we need some Doom up in here.
Exactly.
I've never read much Doctor Doom, but I know Doctor Doom's big.
Exactly.
So
he's one of those characters who has that like big influence.
So I can definitely see, because they've been so good at this, just sort of putting Doctor Doom as sort of like, okay, you're the next saga villain. Even if they don't have a plan, cause everyone said, oh, the MCU had a plan. I don't think the MCU had a plan. I think they just were smart and knew okay, we're gonna retroactively kind of make Thanos the big bad of our 9-part Infinity Saga. We hinted that we're gonna do this, but it's not like we had a master plan from the get-go.
Right.
Maybe we just had some ideas, and maybe that's now that we can bring back Doctor Doom, we can add him, we can give him his own movie, or we can just put him in the next Fantastic Four movie we ever do, and then we keep him alive, hopefully, and then we just build him up, and we can just retroactively use him as our next big bad. X-Men though, that's when things get a little tricky.
Right.
Because I think they're not going to retroactively do anything. I think they're just going to have the mutants show up. And you do have 5 years of weirdness going on after Infinity in Endgame now. So stuff could happen. Stuff could have happened. Although, you do then lose some stuff. If you want to bring Magneto and Charles, I like Magneto's origin of him being from Poland in Nazi-occupied Poland. He was Jewish. I don't want to lose that for that character because, Jewish representation in film, even if he is the bad guy. I would hate to lose that and kind of just that history of Magneto hating people.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly still am not sure how they do X-Men yet. Maybe they'll just show up one day just we're the X-Men. Or, maybe they're just going to stick with the original core X-Men characters and, work it like that. I don't know.
I mean, there's a way you could do it, whereas if you could say, okay, the X-Men mutants have been around for a while in human history. Maybe S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra have just been covering them up, so the public doesn't really know about them. And then maybe the X-Men debut, and it's so big and it's so impressive that it can't be covered up anymore. And then that's when public hysteria starts. You could maybe go with something like that, and maybe Weapon X is part of that. It's an organization. It's we know mutants exist. People have had sightings of mutants, but people just dismiss them. when a mutant appears on its own, it's kind of, oh, is this just another one of the Avengers or something? Like, there is ways you could work them in, but I
Just
definitely
say the
agree.
Inhumans and mutants are the same thing. Let's go
Yeah,
retcon
but
that.
then you're gonna have to acknowledge the Inhumans happened. So I mean, I don't think the MCU is
Yeah.
gonna want to bring that one back up.
Yeah, that was and the Inhuman thing was so big in the TV world, like Agents of Shield and the Inhumans non-movie. Oi, oi.
Yeah,
I just you're probably right. Like I'm sure the MCU would just kind of ignore it. I mean, that's what they've been doing right now, right? So yeah, that's another one. Another character who we don't haven't talked about, but I'm still curious how they do it. I want to see Red Skull come back. Dang it, in like actual villainous form, and not floaty ghost soul thing.
see, there's the thing there is because obviously Red Skull has been recast in Infinity War and then spoilers in Endgame. Um, he was voiced by someone else, although they were very much doing an impression. Bringing him as a main villain foil, I think you could do something with, because anyone who's read the comics knows that for a while there, Red Skull did come back as like kind of this figment of the cosmic cube and was possessing people, while someone else, Captain America, in that case it was Bucky. If you want to bring in with now after Endgame, where Sam's going to be Cap, you could do a very similar story where Sam as Cap is trying to find his footing, and his trial by fire is going to be having to fight against the resurfaced Red Skull. I think that could be an interesting story you could do.
I like that. You can even get really political, you're Captain America, and like you are an African American. Like even get into like the racism a little bit because Red Skull's a Nazi. I don't.
Exactly.
He
Um,
doesn't. It's
There's even the
American
thing I
and
just thought of as well is Red Skull. What's he doing on Vormir? He's guarding the stones. The stones are gone now, so he doesn't have to guard that anymore.
yeah, he can head out back home, or I mean, I don't know how he can get out of there, but I don't know if he's trapped there or not. But
I would
if
how it pictured in my head was the stone or whatever magic around the stone was keeping him trapped there, and then when the stone actually got broken, is you could make an excuse as, oh, now he's with the stone broken, he's free to travel the universe, and he makes his way back to Earth.
they can do like he built a not army of space Nazis and he's coming down.
Oh my god.
It's like that weird movie about when Nazi took over the dark side of the moon. But yeah, I like that. Bring back Hydra, please. Um, I still can't get over the fact that Hydra just ended in Age of Ultron. I love that movie, but still, um, yeah, I'd like to see that as well. Um, but what I guess what I wanted to do this discussion about was because Endgame did the thing that I did not think they were going to do, but I was so happy they did. It means Endgame to me means that we're just going to push forward in the timeline. Tony is dead. Captain America is old. The characters can move on.
Yeah, we're not gonna have to just keep recasting.
And I like that. Like I know, like Kevin Feige once said, we want to James Bond it, but I was kind of always not a big fan of that idea because to me, as someone who just really knows the characters from the movies more or less, I associate those actors so much more with the characters. Like to me, Chris Evans is my Captain America.
Right.
I don't really have emotional investment with anyone else outside of Chris Evans' Captain America. And I'm not saying eventually we're going to reboot and we're going to have another Captain America film. It's going to happen one day. We have so many Batman movies. And we have like 2 versions of Spider-Man already.
But that's the thing, though. With the future of the MCU, I think that's a good point to bring up. Is the MCU is so successful and it's so big, and we've now established that legacy characters are going to be a thing. Is if when Tom Holland eventually wants to quit, we'll just get Miles Morales, and they'll do that because we've got Sam Cap now as the first of that saga. Very much. Reboots are probably going to be like, what, 20, 30 years and down the line? It's not going to be anytime soon. Yeah, it won't be anything like the Batman movies where it's like every 10 years or every 5 years, it seems like now. It's just going to be like, it's going to be much it'll be the equivalent of rebooting like Harry Potter.
Oh, I'm dreading that day because you know it's gonna happen.
Yeah, but it will definitely be
Or Lord of the
far flung.
Rings.
Yeah, or Star Wars.
Oh gosh, like full on reboot Star Wars, not just connected to the old
Mm-hmm.
universe.
Just get a new actor as Luke and start from A New Hope again.
I mean, yeah. I'd be curious to see how recasting is handled, especially if they want to do more in betweeny stuff. Um, but yeah. But I definitely agree with you. Like the MCU is so built upon the success of the actors. Like honestly, the only one I've never had that sort of same kind of visceral emotional investment in, and I'm gonna hate this because of all the controversy on the internet, is Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And nothing against Tom Holland. I like MCU Marvel quite a bit, Spider-Man quite a bit. But I guess like on a psychological level, it's because I have already two versions of Spider-Man I grew up with
Right.
Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, who I like both. I'm in the positive Amazing Spider-Man camp myself. I like both. Um, but not the same way as like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Even though I know people say, it's not comic book accurate Tony Stark, it's just Robert Downey Jr. in an Iron Man suit. But to me, that has been the character I've known for 10 years. Um, and he's appeared in like multiple things in a way that the DC characters, in terms of their media appearances, have never ever achieved. Sadly, or maybe not. Maybe it's just a good thing, but maybe that's just the differences between the two companies and how they're kind of made. Like Tom Hiddleston is Loki. That has been Loki for years now. Um, and I really like that we're gonna have legacy characters, and the character can grow up and move on, and it's not like no Peter Parker. Oh no, Peter Parker can't be a grown up. He gotta be a teenager again. Zoop, weird MacGuffin. At least hopefully that's not what happens. Um, and I feel like it can feel a little bit more natural and move on. And like I know people who don't like comics because they don't feel like they move on. It's like, oh, Batman's still Bruce Wayne. He's still fighting the same people, and we're all kind of the same age. It's like I didn't get to see Captain America have his ending. Regardless of how you felt about it. But I know there's a little controversy about that. But it's like I'm glad I can now say, oh, this is Captain America's beginning. This is his end. Done.
His end game.
Exactly. Or even better, Tony's beginning as Iron Man, and then his sacrifice as Iron Man. Like, there's an end point. I can be happy. I can feel fulfilled.
Right. I guess just then to close up, if you had to pick one future film, be it announced or be it just one you would love to see them do, what would be your most? This would be the MCU film down the line I would love to see the most.
Ooh. I think for me probably Fantastic Four. I just want. I
Same
think that's
here.
probably one. And I'll be also very curious just to see how many people go see these films. I mean, they're gonna make money, but sort of like I know a lot of people like, okay, I feel like I can drop off now with the end game. Like the story's done for me, and now the next generation can take on. Very much like Star Wars is happening right now with the sequel trilogy. So, in a bit of a way, but yeah, it'd probably be Fantastic Four. That would be probably my pick. It just feels like finally the MCU it's feeling whole again.
Mm-hmm. That would be my big thing as well. Is Fantastic Four, and then the eventual what the Russo brothers have said they'll only return if they get to direct Secret Wars, and I'd be like, please.
That's probably going to be the next big arc.
No, I think that they should save that for like Phase 6, and that should be the end of the MCU, and that'd be where everything's, because you're never going to top that.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want to peak too early.
Yeah, but that should be from where we are in Endgame. Is I want Secret Wars film 10 years from now, and that would be the end.
Ooh, I like that, and that'd be like good 20 years. So then you can reboot.
Yeah, then you can reboot, and you can start with a new Steve Rogers, a new Cap or something. I think that'd be the best way to do it. But yeah, anyone in the in the comments below who'd like to see what your most anticipated possible future. It can be as out there as possible. It can be as crazy as you'd like. Just what would you like to see down the line for this crazy, beautiful franchise we've seen Marvel build up? Thank you again for joining me on this, Joel. Getting to see
Always.
your take on the MCU and discussing more Endgame with someone who was also just as emotionally touched by it is really a nice thing. So yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah, always happy to join anytime.
And as always, if you have enjoyed this, don't forget to share, don't forget to throw this around to any other people with MCU crazy theorized ideas. But most of all, have a good night, have a good day, have a good morning, or wherever you are in the world. Just take it easy, folks.
Avengers?
Assemble.
Yeah.